The following is a Shaw TV Public Affairs presentation. Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Hello and welcome to Constituency Report. I'm Tracy Grimsrud. Very pleased to welcome Dan Ashton to the studio today. He is MLA for Penticton. Welcome, Dan. How are you?
It's always a pleasure, Tracy. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you here. And of course, since we last spoke on this show, government has changed hands. You now sit in opposition. That doesn't change things as far as serving your constituents is concerned, does it?
Absolutely not. And many people know that I'm really not that political. Like, I believe in good governance, and I've tried to practice that in my elected positions from council, regional district, and now as an MLA in the province. And I represent the entire community and the entire constituency area, no matter what your political stripes are.
Definitely. And I'm guessing quite a privilege to be re-elected by the people of Penticton.
Absolutely it was, a real honor. First time is you're kind of like eyes wide shut coming in and wondering what will happen. Now you have a little bit of experience underneath your belt, but it is an incredible honor to be able to represent those citizens that put a lot of trust in you when you come down to Victoria to ensure that you're representing them the way they would like to be represented. And I don't take that decision lightly at all. So.
Well, you now serve as the BC Liberal Critic for Indigenous Relations. Tell us a bit about what that entails.
Well, I have the honor of, as you said, being the critic. Minister Scott Fraser, an absolute gentleman, and I'm the check and the balances, or try and be the check and the balances as he moves forward with his ministerial duties. And again, for me, with my family, my father instilled in me a lot of values, and I've tried to carry those along, and those values have, in the area that I represent, Penticton and the Penticton Indian Band, my father had made good broaches into the band over the years of his business, and I've tried to carry that along. And having grown up with many of those individuals, but now I get the chance to represent all the bands in the province as the critic. And again, I do my best to ensure that their voices are being heard. And if there are issues, I would like to say that I have a good working repertoire with the minister. And as things come up, I'm quite sure that his door is always open for some of the concerns.
Excellent. Well, as we speak, we are nearing the end of the fall legislative sitting. There have been a couple of bills that have generated a fair amount of debate, one of which is Bill 6, and that's around proportional representation. Any concerns around this one?
Well, for me there is. I'll just relate back to what I said a few minutes ago. Even this first past the post that the EC has, as an elected official and as an MLA and representing all those citizens, I don't care what political party they voted for. When you're here in Victoria, you represent all those individuals. And people say, well, a vote, there's so many percent went this way and so many percent that way, and we should have that reflected inside the House. I really actually disagree with that. I think if you are a good MLA and you serve the citizens well, proportional representation to me, from what I've seen transpire around the world today, it's not the best. And in a discussion when I was making a small speech in the House, I know I was getting some friendly criticism from the government about what transpires in New Zealand, and Germany was a point of interest for them at that point in time. And I just have to show what happened in Germany this past weekend was the government's collapsing. They cannot get an agreement, and the Prime Minister has said, if I think I'm correct, that Prime Minister, Ms. Merkel, has said that she would favor a new election. Well, they've been 2 months plus without a government. Now they have to go into a new election. And I mean, Germany is one of the more stable countries in Europe today. It is definitely one of the countries at the front and center of the direction that Europe wants to go. And when you take that into consideration, I don't think that's really what the people want. They want people that will represent them fairly and equitably, And I think proportional representation brings a lot of unknowns into an election process, and especially into a government process, and that's not something I want to see in BC.
Mm-hmm. Another bill, Bill 3, would see taxpayer subsidies going to political parties. Any thoughts you want to share on that one?
Yeah, I was the first to come out and say absolutely not. People know me as being very fiscally responsible and financially accountable. But again, my parents instilled in me to make sure that I have a large social conscience, and I do have that. And I cannot take money from the people of British Columbia for the party that I represent, or for being gifted to me through government and the party for my elections. People that have helped me at home get elected, they do that on a volunteer basis. It's not a taxation. And like I said, I was the first person to come out of the gate to say absolutely positively not. I will not take any contributions by government to help me get elected in the future if I choose to run again.
Mm-hmm. And that notion of taxpayer subsidies, that was kind of a surprise element of the bill. Was it a surprise to some of your constituents? Any feedback you've heard?
I have heard feedback, and as you know, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible, but I really think that the Premier, who said that this wasn't going to happen and changing it, I don't think he's heard the last of this. Mm-hmm. And I hope he listens to what the province, the citizens of the province are saying on this. You know, fair is fair. So if you want to make a donation, you can make a donation. You shouldn't be forced into it, i.e. by just another form of taxation so that it flows through. Mm-hmm. It's the wrong way for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Some people don't want to donate to political parties at all, so they should have that choice.
And I concur wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So.
Earlier, you touched on fiscal responsibility, and I wanted to ask about the NDP's budget update in September. Did that raise any red flags to you at all?
No, Minister Carol James, and I've had the opportunity to work with her before on the Finance Committee, mm-hmm. and she's got a lot on her hands right now. As we know, the economy's been perking along pretty good over this past decade, and we've been very fortunate in British Columbia. We're like the star shining province in all of Canada, and actually I think we're an envy of a lot of places in North America. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of demands that are coming forward, and there was a lot of promises made in the last election by both parties, but specifically by government, and I think the minister has a lot on her plate to try and balance. And as you know, the Finance Committee was reinitiated, and I was fortunate enough to be able to come in as, number one, as a nominee from our party, but mm-hmm. also to be elected as like the deputy chair of it. And Bob, the chair, did an incredible job. All the committee members did a good job, and it was really good to hear again all the requests of the people from around this province. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot in that report that is going to the Finance Ministry, and ministry staff and the minister are going to have some real decisions on their hands to see where the funds are going to go mm-hmm.
for
not only the September budget, but also what's left of it and what may be left in there, but also when she brings her first real budget forward in February.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, because all of that input that's gathered, that sort of informs what we might see in that February budget. Is that how the process works?
Yeah, and it does it in a good way because, number one, we actually get out and hear from various citizens of various communities all around the province, although this time it was a little bit shorter because normally it's almost a 3-week trip when you're out, but mm-hmm. This time with the numbers in the House and everybody having to be the numbers of MLAs in the House and votes, it had to be pretty strategic, and there was a time frame where we could get out during a break period. Mm-hmm. And there was an awful lot of input, an awful lot of good input. But attached to all that input is a cost, and it's up to the Finance Minister to do that balance. And one thing I'm incredibly proud of is that once again, that report, and I've been involved now, this was my 5th year on that, and all 5 have gone forward unanimously. Mm-hmm. And that just shows, in my opinion, that shows the people of British Columbia that we can actually work together.
Definitely.
And that makes a big difference. And it makes a big difference for the citizens of BC that the people that they elect have the opportunity, take the politics out of it, but when we're in here, we're actually working for all of them. And that report, in my opinion, shows that.
Excellent. Any concerns you're hearing from constituents as far as the NDP's raising of personal and corporate taxes?
You know, taxes, unfortunately, are a necessary evil, but it's how you manage them and how you bring them forward. And again, coming back to the time where I had a bit of control over it, not only as a councillor, but more importantly as the mayor. And I was adamant that we had to stay and live within our means. And government has to do that. And if I come back to that report, I mean, the finance report, with the minister having to make some hard choices, there will be issues. And I just hope that this current government doesn't get carried away with taxation increases across the board. I mean, BC, we're fortunate, we're number one in the country, but you know, there's a lot of clouds starting to appear on the horizon, and we don't need to look any further than just south of us, our number one trading partner, and the uncertainties that are coming through there with NAFTA, with the softwood, with some of the direction the administration is taking down there. It is going to have an effect not only on British Columbia, but all of Canada. And I just really hope that the current government is very careful about how they administer new taxation to the citizens of BC, because people are tapped out. And I really think that that's a true statement, that it's hard enough these days. You know, when I take a look at yourself and, you know, your husband and that beautiful new Connor baby that you have,
right.
you know, and, you know, for young people and the cost of housing today, and every penny counts for them to be able to try and get ahead in life. And when there's additional taxation that comes off of everybody's paycheck, it just makes it that much harder to try and get ahead. So I just hope they're very careful.
I think a lot of those young people heard about promises like $10 a day daycare and a monthly renter's rebate, but it seems like the NDP is backing off on those promises a little bit. Is that the impression you get?
Well, I hope they don't. They've made those promises, and they have to stand true to the people that put them into government, and I hope they don't. But once again, there's some phenomenal costs attached to that. $10 daycare, and I remember a representative that has come on numerous times to push the financial committee, you know, for $10 daycare, and that's fine. When you look at the setup costs that can run into $1 billion plus, you know, I've heard figures of $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, $1.7 billion, and then ongoing operation. That's an awful lot of money, and we want good childcare for our kids. You as a new mom, and I remember myself, we were incredibly fortunate. A young lady by the name of Peggy Kennedy, where I live, you know, she took both of our kids, and we were on a list to get in there, and my sister's kids kind of broke the way, and but we were able to get our kids in, and that takes a lot of pressure off a working family like what you have or what I had, where, you know, where both parents are away, and you want to make sure that the care that those kids are getting is the best. So I really hope that the government of today doesn't back down on this, but again, there's that balance of costing, and I personally think right now that's what they're finding out. It's okay to make a statement like that in the election. Actually, it's not okay, but they've made a statement in that to get elected. Now people are starting to push them to honor up with that, and my gosh, you know, it's going to be a challenge. So we have to wait and see what the finance minister comes up with. So.
Definitely. Well, speaking of pushing, in question period, you've pushed the agriculture minister for some answers around the tree fruit replant program. What's the situation there?
Well, you know, Minister Popham, I know that she loves agriculture, and I've watched her over the last 4 years as being the critic for agriculture, but our government put another $5 million into tree planting and into tree replenishment, and I hope the government follows through with it. People know that I do grow fruit, and I'm not of the scale and size that I can utilize those dollars. Unfortunately, I wish I could, but for what we do on our farm, but it's important. And, you know, today, again, with markets changing so quickly, the growers have tried to stay ahead of the curve. And when you look in British Columbia of the land the size of the land plots of the farms compared to just across the border from us, we have to be at the sharp edge of the curve. And that program allows farmers to kind of look ahead and get a bit of help to get trees in the ground, because you put a tree in the ground, you're looking at 3 to 4 years, 5 years before you start getting good production off of it.
Right.
So it's important, and once again, I really hope that Minister Popham will hear what was said, and will carry on with that program.
Mm-hmm. And the staff at the legislature know about your fruit growing capabilities. You always come with these wonderful boxes of apples, and I have to say they are tremendous.
Well, thank you. It does give it, to put a plug in, a couple good friends of mine, Richard and Denise McDonald, and Richard has a wonderful orchard, and he has some different varieties in it. Some varieties now that are coming on stream, Salish, but specifically the apple that gets rave reviews here in Victoria is a
so
Golden
good.
Gala Aurora, or Aurora Golden Gala, and I call it Golden Gala Aurora. And I have 350 new trees in the ground personally.
Ooh.
But again, I'm 3 to 4 years away from production on those. But
Yeah.
It's an absolutely stunning apple, hard to handle. Packing houses don't like it, but for the fresh fruit industry and for friends, it's always a pleasure to bring that fruit down. And Richard and Denise do an incredible job of growing that apple. So.
Definitely. Well, they are delicious. And as we know, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about healthcare issues with MLA Dan Ashton. We'll put up contact information for him, and we'll be back to chat much more with him right after this break. Welcome back to Constituency Report as we continue our discussion today with Penticton MLA Dan Ashton. Turning to healthcare matters, I know this is an issue dear to your heart, a project you've long advocated for. How's the new patient care tower at Penticton Hospital coming along?
Well, it looks stunning, Tracy, absolutely stunning. There have been so many people involved in this, like so many people have put their heart and souls into it, and through the hospital foundation, through private donations, through people that work at the hospital, the doctors, the nurses, the staff, everybody in the community, not only Penticton, I'll have to say in our area, the regional district area, have got behind this in such a good way. And it topped out. The building's topped out right now. They're just about to start on the parquet, but it's a steel structure and a concrete structure at this point in time.
Right.
But oh my gosh, it's so good to see. So.
Yeah, definitely. And you had the new health minister, Adrian Dix, visit the area recently?
We did. Minister Dix was up and got to sign also for the last beam to go up on the top of the elevator shaft. And Minister Dix reminded me of a time when I was the mayor of Penticton and he was the official critic for healthcare. And we sat together in the mayor's office in Penticton and schemed, is that the right word, on how we could make sure that this would be pushed forward.
Oh,
and,
look at that.
Yeah, and you work with everybody, right? And this
Yeah.
is incredibly important. So, boy, I can remember back to the early 2000s at the regional district where we really wanted to leave a legacy at the regional district to ensure that the people, because in above Hope or outside of Hope, outside the Lower Mainland, we pay 40% of the costs for capital projects and hotels. That's something the people in the Lower Mainland don't, I think, quite realize, because they don't pay for that. And it was a lot of money back then because we were anticipating the hospital was around $110, $120 million. So our regional district board wanted to leave a legacy, and we were going to try and have the cash available when the hospital call came to be built, so that there wouldn't be any additional taxation.
Right.
And golly, we came a long way, and I think we had $36 or $37 million in cash that was able to be contributed to the hospital to actually start it a little bit early.
Oh,
and that's what transpired, and now the fruit and of all that hard labor from everybody that was involved in trying to get this forward is absolutely visible on the sky and the vistas around Penticton, because that hospital sticks up like a good thumb, not a sore thumb. So.
Absolutely. And how needed is this project?
Well, it is. It was a great hospital, and I cannot say enough about the staff that work there, from the administration, the doctors, the nurses, the staff, right to everybody that does literally the groundwork around that hospital. They have been so involved in that hospital, and they've taken such good care of the elderly building and worked in circumstances that probably aren't the best, but the type of healthcare that's delivered in there is the top. It's like the best healthcare that you can get. And this new facility is going to make a difference. And the hospital draws from a big area. It draws from about 80,000 people, so it draws as far west as Princeton, Tulameen, over to Rock Creek to the east, and up north, I would hesitate to say even almost to Peachland. People have the choice at Peachland whether to go north or come south, but our regional district ends just north of Summerland, but I'm quite sure we do get traffic in there because it's a really good hospital.
I bet. And you mentioned all the wonderful people supporting this project, and Mr. David Campy is one of them, and I hear he's being recognized in quite a special way.
He has, and I can't say enough about that man. I've had the opportunity, being on council, the regional district, as a mayor and as an MLA, to see what this man has done in the community. Never ever asked for recognition, and it was actually quite difficult to even get him to acknowledge that he would put his name forward for the new tower, and it's called the David E. Campy Tower. Okay. And I cannot say thanks enough, and I know that there are so many people in our area that have benefited from his incredible generosity, not only in healthcare, but in a lot of other things, whether your kids are at soccer, your kids are in hockey. Another example, there isn't a child under 18 years of age that doesn't get to go to a hockey game of the Penticton V's at our SOEC, the South Okanagan Event Center. They don't pay anything. Mr. Campy looks after all the tickets, and quite often he'll include hot dogs in that. And that's all year round. And this man, his generosity is just unbelievable, and being able to have his name up on that tower is very fitting for a gentleman like that. But but also, and Mr. Campy would be the first to say, he's only one of so many individuals in these communities, not only Penticton, but in the entire regional district, that have made a contribution to the hospital, whether it goes through the foundation or whether it's personal through volunteers, etc. There's an awful lot of people that have made a big difference.
Fundraisers, big and small,
everything.
All sorts of
you
things.
betcha. So.
Well, also on the healthcare front, you recently got your flu shot, as we see in this next photo. Pretty quick and painless there, Dan? Yeah,
PharmaSave in Summerland. They did a great job. Very nice pharmacist there, and I would encourage everybody, if you haven't had it yet.
I know.
Okay.
I'm getting it.
If you haven't had it yet, to ensure you do, because it's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We know how challenged our hospitals are these days with the type of flu that has been running around even this early in the year. You get that shot, and hopefully it'll help prevent it, because when we start tying up those healthcare resources, which are limited, as we all know, and challenging these days, we want to make sure we keep as many people as we can out of the hospital and out of the emergency wards. So please, if you are listening, you haven't had your flu shot yet, make sure you do get down to your local pharmacy and get it done. It's I personally think it's incredibly important.
Definitely. Well, on the housing front in Peachland, I understand there's some affordable seniors housing underway.
Yeah, I just saw the foundation. It's coming out of the ground. I was up there on Saturday night for the awards for the Chamber of Commerce Business Awards, and I peeked over the fence, and boy, it's looking good.
Excellent.
It's nice to see, and it's long overdue. Peachland's a wonderful little community, and again, if you have the chance, make sure you pull off the highway and get down into the community of Peachland. You won't meet nicer people than the people of that area. Yeah. Phenomenal restaurants in Peachland, but they've got a structure that has been sorely needed in that area, and it's well underway at this point in time. So.
Another great facility I wanted to ask about was Discovery House. This is a recovery home.
It is, you know, and unfortunately in society today, there are people that need a little extra hand, and Discovery House is a place that's taking place at. Jerome and the gentleman, the other people that work in that home provide a great service for people that just need a little extra help sometimes. And he's, from where he started to what they have right now on Winnipeg Street, it's a great location, and the funding keeps coming through, but it keeps coming through because they make a difference and they show that they can. And to Jerome and his staff, I just have to say thank you.
Well, I know there are so many wonderful community events, and each year Penticton has played host to a huge triathlon event that is now changing hands. How important is this event to the community?
Well, it is. We're known, when you look at the entire vistas in the South Okanagan, to be able to train, to be able to swim with two wonderful lakes. There's numerous lakes, but two wonderful lakes, Okanagan and Skahall. The bike riding is absolutely incredible in the whole South Okanagan Similkameen. And then the running capabilities on there with the roads that we have around the lake make a big difference. And, you know, athletes have come from all over the world, not only for Ironman triathlons. The latest was Challenge, and now that is now morphing into another one. And we just had a World Triathlon event, which was stunning. The numbers were around 3,500 people from all over the world came. Wow. And I heard nothing but raves about it. A little bit of trouble sometimes with the smoke this summer, but they just said, "Oh my gosh, what a place you have here!" And I know that they're going to come back. And the proprietors of it, Michael Brown and company, did an incredible job for their first year out of the gate. Communities again rallied behind them to show them to show the contestants and the athletes what an area can do when they're hosting an event like that. And it's my understanding that they're going to try and make it bigger and better, and I sure hope they do.
Definitely. Just a couple of minutes left. You mentioned the wildfire smoke. Was tourism impacted too badly by the wildfires?
I won't say badly, but I think there's a challenge. We started off the year with the flooding that took place, a real unfortunate incident where lake levels came up to ungodly levels, if I should maybe say it that way, but very high levels from what we're used to, and caused a lot of property damage. And then we entered this fire season, and it was not a good fire season whatsoever for the forest or for individuals. But we got through it unscathed, and that's important. However, there are some challenges we're having to get over, and it was a difficult summer for some to breathe because of the smoke, and not your typical blue sky, bright sunshine, Okanagan days. We did have some smoke cover, but people that were coming through, the visitors, accepted it because it was out of everybody's hands. But hopefully, we touch wood, we won't have to go through that again.
Definitely. So, it was quite a season.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been quite a show. Great to have you on the show today, Dan. Lots of great topics to discuss.
Thank you. Tracy, it's always a pleasure, and not only to you and the staff here, but to all the staff here at the legislature. They do such a wonderful job, and to all the members that are in the House. With side, there's with the three parties there. Yeah. Deep down inside, they're doing the best that they can for the citizens that they represent. So that's really important, I think.
And a great note to leave things on. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks, Tracy.
Dan Ashton, he is MLA for Penticton. His website, danashtonmla.ca, if you'd like more information about some of the topics and issues we've discussed today. Thanks for watching Constituency Report.